All right, let's go ahead and import the artwork we're going to be using for this video demonstration. And then the next thing, obviously, we need to do is set the size for this design. Now, I'm going to set the size, the height of this design to be 12 inches. So I'm going to select my graphic, come over here to the Specialty tab and hit Set Size, and click at the very top of the design and the very bottom of the design. It's currently 3.9 inches, so we want to change that to 12. And if we were to pull down a guideline and bring it down to the very tip of his tail, to the very bottom of that T, and draw a box with those guidelines, we would see that we're basically right at 12 inches. Pretty darn close. Okay? So the next thing that I like to do, let me get rid of those guidelines quick. The next thing that I would like to do is go ahead and set the transparency so I can, when I put the stones on top of my artwork, it'll be a little bit easier to see. So we'll go here to our transparency tool. Now you'll find your transparency tool by default over here on the left hand side. I've created this toolbar. We have a video that talks about how to create custom toolbars and also a link to download my toolbar, but you can just install. But anyhow, click on your transparency tool and choose the uniform option, and by default it will set the transparency at 50%, and that works pretty well. I mean, you could go lower if you wanted to, but at any rate, then the next step we would want to do is right click on our design and lock that object. So now we cannot move the original graphic at all. All right, so let's talk about this design a little bit. Now, our next step would be to see how big the rhinestones that we intend to use for the design, how they relate to the artwork itself. So let me explain. So let's zoom in here tight. So I want to see, let's say I wanted to stone his teeth, for example. So we want to use SS10 rhinestone. So I just right click on that square to set my stone size to SS10. See, if I right click on SS6, then you'll see that the stone size changes. I'm going to go back to 10. Let's right click on this light pink color, right click on add stones, and that will give me this eyedropper, and it will place one single stone there for me. And this will directly illustrate our issue. So oftentimes we get designs that just would not convert very well to rhinestones. And this is one of them that is just very, very, very detailed. It looks great in the format that it's in, but it's very detailed and nearly impossible to do in rhinestones and have it look like we would want it to look. And so just to kind of further illustrate the point, if we draw a little square around his mouth here and we look at the dimension, you could see that it's barely, that whole area is barely an inch tall. So how in the world could we get this kind of definition of his teeth and so forth in rhinestones if it's only an inch? We also have a similar issue with embroidery. When we're creating embroidery files, it kind of works the same way. You've got all this massive detail and you've got a half an inch to work with. It just doesn't work very well for rhinestones, or in the case of embroidery, that often is another issue that we run into with embroidery designs as well. So, what do we do about that? Well, there's some options. We could look for a tiger that's not quite as detailed. That might be a possibility. But probably what I would do is, if you wanted the tiger aspect, maybe just use his head, make it bigger, and somehow incorporate maybe one paw and his head rather than all of his body and his tail and all of that. Maybe there's another graphic that's less detailed that the tiger head could be bigger, and thus giving us enough room to get the definition that we would need, so that when we were all done stoning it, it would actually look like a tiger head. So that's where we're limited on this. But let's talk about our double T and how would we go about doing that. Now, of course, we all know how rhinestone programs work. So I'm just going to draw a circle, set my rhinestone size, and click Add Stones. And of course, the purpose of the rhinestone software is to calculate how many stones are going to fit around this circle, given the stone size and the amount of spacing that we want. And so the software will automatically do that. But we also have to have a vector graphic in order for the software to make that calculation. So here we drew a circle. It's a vector object, and so the software can then measure how big a diameter the circle is, and makes a series of calculations based on the spacing and stone size and the size of the object, and will determine in an instant how many stones will fit on that object. Well, in this case, we don't have that. All we have is a bitmap. And so, you know, I don't know. I've only designed one way that it makes sense in my brain. When I first learned about creating rhinestone designs, there was no training software out there, no training videos to show you how to create rhinestone designs. So what I had to do is I had to kind of come up with my own system. Ultimately, I don't care how long a design takes me to create. That's irrelevant to me. What is relevant to me is the final look of that design. What am I putting on a shirt? So I've always kind of come at from a design angle from that aspect. So I'm not worried about clicking a button and having the software magically create something for me. I like to think that if you look at the designs that I create, they have a special look to them compared to other designs because of the way I systematically created the design for optimum look, if you will. So in this case, like I said, we don't have vector. Well, when I create rhinestone designs, I never begin with a vector graphic. If somebody gives me a vector graphic, my first step is to convert that vector object to a bitmap format so I can use it the way I design. And you'll probably see a lot of reasons as we go through this design. You'll probably see some instances where that's going to be helpful to us. So what we're going to do is we're going to stone out the double T. And it's a very simple process. It's a very simple design. It's super easy. I've done literally thousands of designs, so I can look at just about any design out there and know, instantly how I might tackle that design. Now, if you have limited experience, probably won't be able to do that just right off. But at any rate, the first thing that I see about this design is its symmetry. So, and what that means is obviously it's the same on the left as it is on the right. So right there, hello, that is the first tip of the day I can give you is look for symmetry because there's no point in creating something twice. And you would not believe big, big companies out there that create rhinestone designs and sell rhinestone designs. You would not believe how many of those companies, when you really sit and look at that design, even though it's symmetrical, that literally the entire design is stoned. So, for example, if you take a football, is a good example. Okay, a basic football, that's symmetrical. It's going to look the same on the left as it does on the right, assuming it's a dead-on view. You go and look at some football designs from them big design companies who are selling designs, and you'll see that the stones look different on the left than they do on the right. Basketballs, even soccer balls. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. There is lots and lots of instances where something's symmetrical and people actually took the time to stone the entire design. So, first thing, is it symmetrical? That's my first question, always. Yes, it's symmetrical. Excellent. I only have to do half the work. That's the kind of stuff I love. All right. So now let's go ahead and start creating some rhinestones here. So we're going to do this primarily in SS10. I think we could probably use SS10 for the entire design. I don't know that for sure. But let me drop a rhinestone down and take a gander. And it looks like, yes, it looks like to me we're going to be able to do that. So I'm actually going to change this to, just for the purpose of the video, I'm going to change it to black diamond just so you can see it a little bit better. So the first thing is I'm going to start in the center of the design. I am going, so the you could see that the white is thicker than this single stone outline here. So we're going to go 2 stones for it and then 1 stone for that other outline there. So I'm going to select these and I'm just going to offset them, and we could actually select a bunch of them and you could see we can offset a lot at a time. Now, I want to create this design in such a way so where the stone spacing is symmetrical throughout the entire design. What do I mean by that? Well, let me try and explain what I'm saying here. If we look at this design, you could see that where this stone is, it's outside this white area. So in order for me to not have that, I have to do one or two things. I either have to move this stone over and tighten up the spacing between all these stones, or I have to delete these 2 stones and move these to the left and make the spacing even greater. Because of the style of design this is, I don't want to do that. I want to, so right now, all of these stones are exactly a 1/2 millimeter apart. And because of the style of this design, I want to keep every single stone exactly a 1/2 millimeter apart. Now, there's nothing special about that or anything like that. Um, if that makes any sense. It's just my personal preference. And you'll see as we go through the design, uh, that will actually make it a little bit simpler for us because we're going to be creating this design in a grid pattern, if you will. And it just, trust me, as we go through the design, you'll see it kind of come together. And more importantly, the end result will look just like this design looks. So you get the look of this design, but it's not necessarily exactly dimensionally the same. But you know what? Nobody's going to know that when you go about creating the design. Okay, so let's just keep going, and you'll see as we go through, like, aha, the guy's a genius, or you'll say, no, he's crazy. He don't know what he's talking about. One or the other. Okay, so now you see we have that same issue right down here at the bottom. And this is one of the reasons why I don't actually like using vectors, because what the program is going to do, if this was a vector file and we were going to stone this outline, what the program would do is it would either throw away a couple of stones and stretch the stone spacing apart, or um, it would tighten the stone spacing, one or the other, because it doesn't allow for slop like this bottom stone. You can see it obviously extends past um, that white outline. Okay, so like I said, once we kind of go through this a little bit, you'll see how this is all going to work out for us. So we're just going to offset there, and we're going to go up, and we're going to go over. Now we got kind of lucky there that kind of worked out, where that it's almost, dead on like it's supposed to be. So we're going to go over. Now what? Now we have an issue, okay? Because we're basically kind of tracing this white outline, but look here. There is another color stone in there that we don't have room for. Well, we're not going to sweat that. That is very easily fixed. So let's just keep going here. So So we know that that is dead center, which is exactly what we want. Let's keep going. Okay, now I am going to delete one stone there. You can see, obviously, it does not line up to the original artwork. We're going to delete that as well. And I think I'm going to go up one, like so. And then these two, yes. Let's go ahead and go with these two. And then do the same thing with these two. We're going to go one more down here. Then come over. And then that lines up pretty good, doesn't it? Go ahead and offset that down. Now we don't need to go quite that far down, so we'll delete that one. And come over. And obviously we don't need those stones. Back up here. We'll delete these. Come down. I'm going to come down. Tell you what, I'm not going to come down. I'm going to go ahead and leave it like that. Okay. And if you want, we can actually peel this away. Sometimes I like doing it when I get to a certain point. I just want to look at something. Ta-da! Okay, so that looks pretty good of so far of what we've got, right? Obviously, if we were to mirror this, you can see we have essentially the design that we're looking for. So at this point, I'm going to kind of abandon our artwork because we have the basis of our design right here in front of us. So now what I'm going to do is go ahead and offset those stones one row and change it to a color. Now I don't have a maroon color in my color palette here. So I'm just going to use, we just need to use a different color. So in this case, I'm going to be using cyan as my maroon. Okay. And then we'll take these stones and offset them. And that's going to create that border. See that? See what we're doing there? I'm going to delete these stones just so it's a little bit easier to see. But you see that border? This is what we're creating. That maroon color border. Okay? So now, this is where we have an issue right here. So all we need to do is, all I'm going to do is just move this up one stone, right? And we're going to go ahead and pull that down. And now we have room for our light cyan that we need. So we'll go ahead and offset this and light cyan. Now, what is that right there? Well, let's look at the original design. We've got an outline and then we've got black. Okay. So what I would do is select this stone and this stone and hit our select button, and we can offset and then change our color. And then same thing here, we're going to offset down, change our color, and then we'll select these stones, offset, and select our color, this one, and select our color. Okay, so now these stones, we're going to offset and change them out to black. And that is more or less going to give us this. Now, if we really wanted to get technical, this spacing looks like it's 2 stones width, not 1. Okay, so how will we go about fixing that? Well, that's very easily fixed. So we're just going to slide that over one. It's not going to dramatically change the look of our design just by moving that over one. We're going to offset those. And that gives us that double spacing in the original design a little bit closer. Okay. Like I said, we wouldn't necessarily had to have done that, But do I think it looks better? Yeah, I think it probably does look better. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue on. We've got the outline. Look at there, we've got a double stone width there. Then go back to a single. Let's see what we're going to do here. So let's keep going. So here you could see we only have space for one stone. So what I might go ahead and do just right now, go ahead and move that over one. Now we'll go ahead and select all of these and offset those back over one. And now we have enough room for that double look. If we really want to get technical and we want that look, that's how we do it. See, pretty simple stuff. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and select this stone and hit select. That selects everything in between, and then we can offset. We'll select this whole row, offset, and then go ahead and offset that row. And ta-da! That basically is that part of that design. Now, the rest of this, we do need to fill this in. And the rest of it's pretty straightforward. So we watch. We're just going to offset this, and then we could just keep offsetting to fill it in. And then when we get to a certain point, we'll select one row. Then we'll get to a certain point and select a bunch of rows. And the software makes all these calculations for us as far as when we're filling in the grid here. So it knows how much to offset and everything. So this is one function that probably is somewhat unique to EasyStone. Your software is probably not going to have some of this functionality, but I literally created EasyStone with this functionality because I use this method a lot, especially with this style of design. So it was obviously important for me to have that function. Okay. And then here. Now that's something else we can talk about. Yeah, this is more or less 2 stones width. So, well, actually that was the wrong part of the design. Let's see here. We're here. This part of the design. Let's see here. What do I want to do here? I could move that over. See, this has 2 stones here, and this only has 1, and I don't really like that. So let's go ahead and nudge this all over 1. So I'm just going to go from center to center there. And then we can go ahead and offset that one. Now here, we can offset this. And just offset. So now we have 2 stone width. Now we have an issue with this, obviously. So we're going to move that. No. We have 2 stones there. We only have 1 there. So what we're going to do actually is just move those back over. There we go. But now we've got this issue where I would prefer to have 2 stones. So we're going to just drop that down 1 row. There we go. And now we're just going to go ahead and change all those. Let's see here. What are we doing here? Let me back up because I lost control of what I was trying to do. Let me just back up. Sometimes that helps. Okay, so I need 2 stones going this way. So I'm going to drop that back down. Take this row. There we go. Now I'm back on track. Got lost there for a second. It's easy to do. Okay. So now I'm going to select all of these and come down. And the thing that I do like about this type of design method, if you will, is it's dead simple. I mean, literally anybody with any skill level can do that. Okay, so that is one advantage to this type of design style. So let's go ahead and change those. Might be a little bit time consuming, I'll give you that, but it is, dead simple. Anyone can do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and check our spacing. There's a bunch of stones on top of stones. You can see it, there's 5 of them. I guess I don't know if I would consider that a bunch, but there's a few then. Okay, so now the next thing is we've got to create all of these shadows. Okay, and those are pretty easy to create. I'll show you what we're going to do here. So I'm just going to grab a stone here just for fun. If we come back over to the original artwork and place that there and just offset that, how many stones is it? It's roughly 4. Okay, so that'll be important for us to know. So what we're going to do then is we're going to take that row of stones and offset it, change its color, and we're going to make it 4. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing here. So we're going to offset it, change its color, and make it 4. And then also down here, we're going to offset it, change its color, and make it 4. Okay, so you can see here there's a shadow there, there's a shadow there, there's a shadow there, and there was a little bit of black in there, which we did get in our design over here. But now you can see we have a little bit of a slant here. How do we deal with that? Well, let me show you what we're going to do with that. So all we're going to do is we're going to delete, so that outside stone stays, and we're going to delete those. And then all we're going to do is pull that stone over. So you can see how it kind of lines up there. So pull that stone over so it lines up. And then here we're going to delete this one, and we're going to kind of pull that over so that lines up. And all we're going to do is select the outside and the inside, select horizontal. Select horizontal and select horizontal. And that will give us that kind of diagonal shadow. So delete this one, and this one. And sometimes we'll have to add a stone. Sometimes we'll have to take one away. So you can see here, we're going to select all those. And by selecting the outside and the inside and then hitting select, it selects everything in between, and then we can horizontally space those stones at will. These tiny little features in EasyStone, believe it or not, don't exist in a lot of software. But look how dead simple it is. I mean, it doesn't get much easier than that. Like I said, that it doesn't take anybody, any real skill level can do this stuff. Super, super simple. Okay? So that takes care of all that. So you can see we have that shadow, that shadow, that shadow. We've got that little bit of black. And that's it, folks. We've got our maroon outline, outlining all of our crystal. Okay? And so that takes care of that. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to select the whole design and flip it over and right click. And what that'll do is that'll make a duplicate of the design. And then we'll just come over here and drop this right on top of that. Okay, that was dead center. And then we'll select everything and hit check spacing. So it's going to go through and take a look at our spacing. And you can see it found 58 objects sitting on top of one another. And that's it. That's all she wrote for this design. We'll go ahead and throw a weed box around it. And that's it. So that is our completed project. So you can see it's pretty straightforward if you just kind of break it down into smaller bite-sized pieces. Don't get too trapped in the original artwork. Now I do see something's kind of funny. No, maybe not. No. Okay, yeah. You see we have this outline. Yep, it all matches up. Okay. I don't know what I was looking at that I thought was a little weird, but no. That is exactly how the original artwork is. So there it is. So you can see it's wasn't very complicated at all. You know, literally, if I was just going to sit down and do it, probably a 15-minute job at best. So pretty straightforward stuff. But now that gives you a good idea of how we would go about kind of simplifying the design, the way we look at that design. It's like, oh, it's so tedious. No, actually, it's really, really straightforward because this one lent itself real well to that kind of grid method, so to speak. And yes, we had to modify the original artwork a little bit, and it doesn't, if we take this and hover over, you can see it doesn't line up real well uh, with the original artwork per se, but the design is the same. It just there's a couple of stones taller, a couple stones wider, but that helped us create that design more easily using that kind of grid method, if you will. So that's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a little something about it. And try some of this function. Some of the software out there might have similar features to EasyStone. So you'll have to experiment with your software, but at least that gives you a good idea how I would go about tackling that portion of the design. Thanks for watching.